Hey, what's up, guys? I'm gonna be trying to cover also, in addition to all the other weird things I cover and James vids while I have him here on the East Coast. Covering a lot more. I don't know how to say it. I would say DIY kind of stuff, but even that term, or like self-published, all these terms, they kind of almost like they have a connotation to them which I almost feel like that was done on purpose back in the day in order to get us in the stage of uh, cultural decline that we are now. The Bizarchives is a group. I had first heard of them. Arkham Reporter had done a podcast with the I guess the main guy Dave Martell. It was a really good podcast. I'll link to it. Very entertaining, very interesting. But essentially, they're doing what like my buddy James is doing, what other people are doing, the wiki, Young Ripper, all these disparate people. You're realizing that the popular culture, okay, I don't want to say entertainment because that's another definition term that sort of makes it seem trivial. Like when the truth is, unfortunately, as you can tell around you, the popular culture and who controls it and who gatekeeps it and who molds it and guides it has led to the world that you have now. So the popular culture really punches above its weight, so to speak. Uh, and this is an example of people are saying, you know what, I don't like what I'm seeing out there. F you, we're gonna do our own thing, okay, and really doing their own thing, not this, corporate prefab rebellion nonsense you see around you. So essentially these are like short pulp stories, like pulp fiction, horror, adventure, science fiction, kind of like in the old vein of it, with a more modern spin to it. And I like how they have it as issues, right? Like it's a pulp magazine. Of course, pulp magazines, comics, these are all related to each other. Literally, one grew out of the other. These are forms of popular culture. This is what the common man and woman read. Okay, I like the fact that these stories are short. Like you're a busy guy, you're a working dude. You can't read a damn huge 600-page Dostoevsky novel. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there always has to be something the other side of that, and essentially that's what these are. They in the short story format, as Poe said, or as Poe proved, it's probably the best format for, let's say, horror. Okay, and even the action stories in this are kind of like in the weird vein. Okay, anyway, that's the overall thing. It's Kindle, really good copies. The publishing on it is really good, and I like the cover. It's like an old comic book. Let's go inside. All right, I like the preface here with when they talk about Pulp Fiction, putting it in the cultural 20th century context, historic context, right? You get all the Fitzgerald, Sinclair Lewis, Hemingway, Steinbeck, right? These are the famous. The new criticism really elevated these men, particularly in the after the First War, and but really, The Great Gatsby only sold 25,000 copies. Okay, what were the people reading? Now, I'm not saying in terms of like, oh, it's about making money. Well, no, but in terms of for all these modern people that are so very much about democracy, right, and direct democracy that the elites use to cover the oligarchy. Essentially, the people, who are the people, right? Well, I always say, who the hell are the people? Well, the common people at the time, the working Americans, they were voting with their dollars or their nickels to buy these. You see how much Weird Tales and Amazing Stories sold hundreds of thousand copies in a single month. I've told you how much the comic books back then when they started, how many were being sold and distributed every month. That's what the regular people were reading, and I'm sure some of the upper class people were reading them too for fun. And you see of course the people who became famous much later, right? At the time they were forgotten. But that's the whole thing about the written word, right? It lives on long after you're dead. Anyway, in terms of the stories, the ones that I like the best. Can't pronounce this one. It's a Welsh name. There's a lot of Welsh names for places in the region I live in, but I only know how to pronounce them because someone else pronounced them for me first. Right? The Sirath of Drew Barrymore. I like that one a lot. It's like it's got it's got an Arthur Macken, excuse me, Hammer film type feel, like a period, late 1800s. You could picture like the atmosphere in the movies, the clothes of the people, the little pistol and the cane, the attitudes, the pub with the weird people in it looking at you, drinking the crazy ale. Uh, it was a horror adventure, which tends to be my favorite. Right? The contest between life and death and Red Ivy are very much evocative of Clark Ashton Smith. Okay, the guy, nobody wrote like that. I keep saying nobody wrote like that guy. I think Joshi even said the same thing in the intro to the Penguin Books collection. Nobody wrote like him. He was like at another level, dude. And really, especially Red Ivy too. Red Ivy really shows the whole idea of decadence. I'll read a little bit of it, of what I really liked about it. It's almost like it has like a prose poem feel to it, by Liberty McGee. Yeah. But as my son, it was not enough for us to tend our crop. Other things came, drawn by victory and plenty. Few at first, then legion, until at last, beneath parasites and sickness, we were overrun. Oh, you can read between the lines on that. They came to feed upon what we'd grown. You see, drawn in before the fullness of time had made ripe the harvest. It is what they do, and alone I could not stop it. Ruin came, and all soon seemed lost, all sweetness defiled, all firmness made to rot beneath the sickening sun. Right, but then he explains the solution to this, where the Avenging Angel is summoned, right, using vines almost as a familiar. Then from the blood and beating filth of life, an angel stood before me, clothed like the blackest fiend, but her skin soft as starlight. A woman no taller than me, dark wings tucked back beneath her knit cloak of gray and bloody crimson, her hair like the very depths of the night sky. Her eyes met mine and glowed with a fire that could burn down the world. In fact, they promised to. They demanded to. Oh boy. You have any? You ever have any feelings in terms of at least relating to the metaphors here? And I was no longer afraid of such potential. Right? So I really like that story. Lex and the Lost Girl. I think Martel wrote that. It was kind of funny. It's obviously like an introduction to a hero who's like a Conan type. But he's he actually knows how to do magic, and also he's I could say he's kind of a jerk, right? Which is funny. At least Folly I like too. What is it? Talk about metaphors. What I keep saying. This adventure with elven blood, although you don't know it at the time. It's fighting this seemingly this stone troll that does like a sphinx thing where you better get the riddles right. Here we go. As a star soul I earlier dwelt, and I lived above in heavenly lands, above the skyline's gleaming belt and the bright sheen of distant strands. Yet like a shooting star I fell into the tears of a deep well. What am I? Right? And I like how the question is pointed there, right? And then the hero, or the protagonist, the answer is an elf. Huh? The heavenly dynasties are beyond that some call elves and some called all things. They used to dwell in the realm of the gods. However, they fell from grace and eventually passed from the face of this earth into legend and myth. Correct. The stone troll answers. Right? More metaphors. I'm always talking about the elven race. Right? Who am I talking about? Anyway, you get some more stories here. They Never Woke Up is another story from him. Kind of a gruesome science fiction, like dark sci-fi, future dystopian story. Baby Teeth, which is straight up horror. Okay, I would not have done what the protagonist did. Okay, listen, if you love someone and they've passed away, and someone gives you a bargain to bring them back, say no, because you know they're gonna come back as something else. I actually talked about that with my fiance when she was alive. Um, Grandma moves in. You want to talk about? There's some good things in there. I'll just leave it at that. If you read it, okay. Another dystopian story, okay. Uh, Pretty horrifying actually as well, and also very, very relevant. Okay? There's no holding back in that one. And Tanner's Gold, the author of this, has done a double feature, I believe. I actually got that with this in the the package that Amazon gives you. Tanner's Gold is really good. It reminds me, like I said, there's Arthur Macken feel to it. There's also I would say, a Ligotti feel to it, Thomas Ligotti, and an early Clive Barker feel to the story of some some bloke getting drunk at a pub in England, and he's sort of trying to get the last train out, and he gets the last train out for him anyway. So I actually like that one too when he describes the train. In fact, I'll read some of it. There's all copyright, fair use, son. Let's see. Let's finish this up here. Alright. Right. Apparently, the guy feels paralyzed on this train. I tried the usual tricks, wiggling my toes, swinging my eyeballs around left and right. No luck. I could see out of the window, but I didn't recognize where I was. I'd never seen these stations before. The lighting was off. The signs were messed up, and the architecture was odd. Right? The scenery was freakish. The trees were warped, the hedges wild and ungainly. Fences looked like the twisted spines of snakes, ready to writhe around my limbs. Gates and doorways gaped like the jaws of hungry creatures just before biting down on me. Right? This was too much. I tried my hardest to move and shout. I could move my head slightly, and I could move the muscles in the rest of my body, but couldn't actually get up. I realized with horror, I really was stuck to the seat. I wasn't paralyzed at all. Right? What, was I glued to it? I opened my mouth to shout, managing a muffled cry. I quickly closed it, however. Right? I realized that the shadow beneath it was not simply the absence of light, but a thing, in italics, a definite presence. So I like that one a lot too. And essentially, I would check this out. I want to check out the other issues. Like I said, the short story format is great in a lot of ways, and a lot of these are setups for serials too. So check out the Bizarchives. Good work, guys. This is just the first one. Supposedly, this according to the people, the stuff gets better as it goes on. But this was pretty good. I enjoyed this for what for trying to have people outside of what's approved write stuff. Right. Anyway, later.